Hey guys, so 2020 certainly has not been a great year, and it was definitely a weird time for Yu-Gi-Oh! With no in real life events, products being delayed, and the like. Now April 1st, 2020 was supposed to be a big moment for this game because the highly anticipated Master Rule 5 was going to take into effect, but unfortunately the world was shut down by then and we couldn't experience this change in real life events. Now I thought I'd take this time to go down memory lane and do sort of a review of Master Rule 5 so far for the year 2020, which essentially covers the entire time that we were in lockdown, going over the most commonly played decks online on Dueling Book during each format using data from ygeoscope.com, and sharing some of my own replays to showcase what these top decks were like. And if you like data related videos like these, then make sure to like the video and subscribe. So let's just get started. So for the April to June 2020 format, let's quickly go over the April ban list. Now to provide some context, at this point before the list came out, a lot of players weren't sure if we would actually get a list anytime soon because all the events were starting to cancel at that point. But sure enough, not only did Konami post a ban list, they actually did it about a week before the list would take effect. So it came around end of March and the list took effect on April 1st, where the Master Rule 5 officially came into place. I would say some of the most notable hits were the tuners in anticipation of possible synchro abuse with the new Master Rule, and the ban of Spiral Master Plan eliminated Spiral as the top deck. The limit to ABC Dragon Buster and Totally Awesome were really premature, and as we know from the most recent list, they did come back to 3. Some new product releases to consider around this time was Dual Overload, which technically came in March but made a big impact for the new Master Rule, which released cards like Crystron Halqifibrax, Mecha Phantom Beast Aurorodon, Union Carrier, and Predaplant Verde Anaconda, which as we all know made a huge impact on this game. Then we also had Secret Slayers that released Eldlich and Adamancipator, 2 archetypes that quickly rose to tier 1 status, that I'll cover soon. Eternity Code also came out during this time. Originally it was supposed to be around end of April, but there were some production issues due to the pandemic, and it came out in the beginning of June for North America. And this set released even more powerful cards like Access Code Talker, Gearsu, and Adamancipator Archosaur. So we had a string of really strong cards and archetypes released in this span, and so the meta changed quite drastically from the prior format. So let's go with the top 5 most played decks during this time span. Coming in at number 5 was Sky Striker, which had a win rate of 53% during this span. Since the ban of Engage in the January ban list, Sky Strikers weren't where they used to be, but it was still very popular at this point as well. They actually got a big buff during this format because of the release of Halqifibrax, Selene, and Access Code Talker, because it allowed them to have an option to be able to not just clear field, but a way for going for game or at least do a lot of damage, and Mystic Mine not being hit on the list also helped them out as well. Then the 4th most played deck during this time was Dinosaurs with a win percentage of 56%. While the deck wasn't considered as one of the top decks as it is now, Dinos got a huge boost from Archosaur being released in Eternity Code, which allowed them to have this great synergy of being able to summon off of Misk, destroy something like Baby in hand, and also get access to Double Evolution Pill. Powerful going second, but could also set up the whole barrier statue lock when going first as well. Then we have Eldlich with a whopping 61% win rate, and this deck had quite the history during this format. Originally I first saw it in Zombie World variants, which wasn't very good, and we of course saw it as a pure stun variant. Then slowly we started seeing Eldlich Invoked popping up, and finally evolve into Synchro Eldlich, where with the help of Jet Synchron, it was either ending on Herald and Savage with the Eldlich cards, or some builds would end on VFD instead, or also go the TG Hyper Librarian route just to draw more cards. And the deck was absolutely nuts and made it really hard to side against because it had both combo and control pieces to it, and it just really was one of the best decks that dominated this format. Coming in at number 2 was Adamancipator, again with a really impressive 61% win rate. Also coming out of Secret Slayers, this deck really took the meta by storm and turned out to be an insane combo deck, especially with the help of Block Dragon that allowed it to play through multiple interruptions. I mean, just look at this replay where my opponent didn't even draw well and had to banish his whole hand just to get out Block Dragon, but that was still enough to just go full combo. And this deck essentially became the best deck to never top an event because, well, we just didn't have any. Now this may surprise some of you, but the most played deck during this time span was actually Salamangreat. It had a 55% win rate, which was still respectable, and at the start of Master Rule 5 they were still considered to be up there among the top decks, although this was where they started to fall out with the release of decks like Eldlich and Adamancipator and some other strong archetypes that would later be released. Salamangreat actually got a lot of buff during this time because of the release of Access Code Talker, which in combination with Update Jammer meant that they could OTK incredibly easily. The release of Parallel Exceed was also great for the deck, allowing them to either set up a Gooska or Beast Dweller really easily, or go into Traptrix Rafflesia so that they can protect themselves from Nibiru by sending the Gravedigger's Trap Hole. So that was it for the April to June 2020 format, so let's skip ahead to the June to September format. Now, as you can see with this June ban list, it was really more of an unbanned list and the most disappointing list ever. It was sort of understandable since we did not have any in real life events, but it was still devastating to see that we were going to have to deal with Block Dragon and the 1-card Jet Synchron combo for another 3 months. We did have some notable product releases at this point, like Toon Chaos that released some Infernoble monsters, although the rest would come in Rise of the Duelist later in August, and also the 2020 tins that released Dragoon into our format. Now, due to the lack of changes in the ban list and the Infernoble Knights not coming until near the end of the format, the top decks realistically did not change much at this time, other than Altergeist creeping up as one of the most popular decks at this time due to the release of Multipaker. I mean, as you can see here, the set 5 pass was really fun to play against. So we're actually just going to skip the most played deck during this format because it really wasn't all that much different, and totally not because I forgot to save the data for this format or anything. Yes. Moving on to the September ban list. Now at this point, I'm sure you guys remember this time frame more clearly. We finally got the ban on Block Dragon, and Jet Synchron and O-Lion had to pay for the sins of Halqifibrax. The unbanning of Harpy's Feather Duster was absolutely huge, coming off the list after well over a decade on the Forbidden section. There were still some notable misses on this list, such as Smoke Grenade being allowed to survive because at the time, Infernoble Knight was a new deck. In terms of sets, the most notable was Phantom Rage in November, but that was near the end of this format, so Virtual World did not make it to the most played list. Genesis Impact also came out at the start of December, so Drytrons also was not played enough at that point to make it onto this format's top 5. So let's go with the top 5 most played decks again during this time frame. Coming in at number 5 was Dragon Link with a really strong 67% win rate, and this format was really where Dragon Link came to shine as one of the best combo decks out there. At points during this format, Dragon Link also used Smoke Grenade to rip cards out of the hand, while setting up their couple negates along with the Buster Lock. Very strong and could play through multiple hand traps and was actually quite affordable due to the reprints in the Megatins. At number 4, we have Dogmatica Invoke with a 57% win rate during this time frame. The Dogmatica cards along with Shadal Schism came out in Rise of the Duelist in August, so it came out near the end of the previous format and didn't make it to the most played list until this time frame. Very strong deck that can bring out Mechaba on top of a Winda, as well as a possible punishment for that pop or Fleur-de-Lis in hand for that negate, along with any hand traps. It's really shown to be a strong deck since release. At number 3, we still see Salamangreat as one of the most played decks online, although you do see that its win percentage has dropped to 50% at this point, and it was certainly far from its tier 1 status that it was at one point at the start of Master Rule 5. I won't show replays for this deck again, but the deck, even in the current format, still sees a lot of play online. Then we have Infernoble Knight with a 61% win rate for this time frame, which got its final cards like Jurndal, Ogier, Roland, and Charles in Rise of the Duelist, and along with Smoke Grenade, really became this powerful combo deck despite the ban of Jet Synchron and O-Line that could set up a negate, a pop, and rip some cards out of your hand that made it really hard to win against going second. I certainly don't miss getting hand ripped with Smoke Grenade, and I think most of you will agree as well. And finally, the most played deck during the September to December format was Dinosaurs. It had a good matchup against some of the tall combo decks, and Misk was just too strong for us to handle. The deck is still great right now, although many people had written the deck off because of Virtual World. During this span, Dinos won online tourneys like the LCS, and really had people calling for hits to the deck. And finally, we come to the present format where we got our new ban list. Most notable hits to cards like Buster Lock, Link Cross, and Smoke Grenade. No cards came off to limited sadly, although we did get to see ABC Dragon Buster and Totally Awesome finally come back to 3 after its rough start at the beginning of Master Rule 5. For the current format, I'm just going to provide the top 3 most played decks since not much time has passed at this point and the top decks are still ever changing. So coming in at number 3, no surprise, but we have Dinos still as one of the most played decks. Fell off a little bit compared to being the most played deck in the last format, and people were starting to write off this deck because of Virtual World, but Dinos are still kicking it strong it seems. At number 2, we have Eldlich. Now I'm not sure if this number also includes Eldlich Zodiac, since that seems to be its own category on YGOscope.com, but from when I went through the list for LCS 9, I know there were a bunch of non-Zodiac Eldlich decks, whether it's pure with a bunch of traps and Dragoon, or Eldlich Evil Twins, Numeron Eldlich, and the like. I think it's safe to say that Eldlich is going to stick around in this game for a while. And finally, at number 1 in this current format is Virtual World, which I don't think is too big of a surprise, and it has a great win percentage at 62. The deck took the world by storm by showing huge representation at LCS 8 and winning that event, and then winning LCS 9 as well. being able to turbo out VFD with ease and their trap to make it a lot more flexible to find a way to resolve VFD makes it pretty difficult to beat. I think it's safe to say that this is the deck to beat right now. Alright guys, so that was it for my data review of Master Rule 5 in 2020. Hope you enjoyed going down memory lane of what Yu-Gi-Oh was like during the lockdown this year. I hope you guys stay safe and have a happy new year. Take care guys, and let's hope for a better 2021.